In the next few videos, I'm going to be talking about emotionally immature parents. And this is a hot topic, and I have put some videos on Instagram and Facebook, and anytime I talk about things like this, I get some pretty riled up parents that feel like I'm being very unfair. But the reality is this, is as a parent, and hopefully this is something you can catch early when you're still raising your kids, but as a parent of adult children, if we are still reacting and acting in certain ways, we need to own that. And yes, are there emotionally immature adult children? Absolutely. But we have to question a little bit. I mean, we were the ones that raised them, right? And I'm not saying it's all about us and it's all our fault, but we have to own our part. And I really do find when people get very defensive about things, it's usually because it's something they need to look at. So I'm sure I'm going to get some people mad at me, and I'm okay with that because I feel very equipped to talk on this subject because in all honesty and full disclosure, I was an emotionally immature parent when I was raising my kids. And I honestly think many of us were for reasons beyond us. So it's not a blame thing, it's an understanding. It's so that we can do better moving forward. And my biggest hope is that if you're a new parent or you're maybe even in the teens of your children or preteens, that you're gonna recognize some of these traits and make some changes. But even if it's later in life, that's when I made most of the changes myself and really began to understand what emotional immaturity was. I really truly did not know, and I do believe that's the case. You know, many of our characteristics that we have are just things that were passed down to us. And again, I'm not blaming my parents, I'm not blaming my grandparents. These are generational patterns that just flow from generation to generation, and we're really very unaware until somebody gets to a place of realizing, I want to do something different. This doesn't seem to be working for my family. And that was a place that I came to. And it was because I believe, you know, there's just more information, new information than my parents or my grandparents ever had. And so I don't blame them. They did really well for what they were given. And then what I was given, I was responsible to take it to the next level. And as I did that, the great part of this is I was able to bring some changes in my life that directly affected my children. And they have taken off in a whole different direction in a good way. And I did this later in life, so I want to make sure you know it's never too late. Now, is it always worked that way? No, but I think it often does. I think you stack things in your favor. So this is just going to be my first video on this. I wanted to lay the groundwork. I wanted to kind of talk to you about my journey just for a few moments and how did I get to that place of realization? Because before I got to that place, as I was raising my kids, and I would say it was probably as they became teenagers and young adults, that's where it really began to come to the surface. And a lot of what I'm going to be describing in my next video was me. You know, I took everything personally. I was very controlling. I lacked emotional regulation. I would get very emotionally upset, either outwardly or inwardly. You know, either you shut down, kind of like shun them a little bit, or you just get mad and yell. And so I was all those things. And really did not realize that that was immaturity. I thought that's just normal. This is what we do when they become teenagers or even when they're younger. But we had a situation in our family that came up that really caused me to have to do a lot of self-examination. And that's where we have to get to. And my hope for you is it doesn't take a crisis in your family to get there. That maybe watching this video is going to help you to say, you know what? I don't need a crisis to make changes. I'm seeing some of these things in myself now, so I'm going to do what it takes to change. So what I'm going to be doing moving forward is I'm going to be talking about what is an emotionally immature parent. What does that look like? What are the characteristics and traits? And then what do you do if you've been raised by an emotionally immature parent? How do you handle that? How do you handle them if they're kind of still stuck there? And then the last thing I want to do is talk to those emotionally immature parents if they're willing to make some changes, and talk about how do you change? How do you begin to really work on those areas of your life? I have been on that journey, and I want everyone to have the freedom that I have found. Why are we emotionally immature? Again, it comes often from our backgrounds, and there's so many complex reasons for it. And I think it's helpful to know why. But I think the bigger thing is if we can focus on where you are now and say, if I'm seeing even one or two of these characteristics, I want to do better. I want to change. Because this I can promise you, if you work on yourself in these areas and you work on your emotional intelligence and your emotional maturity as a parent, you are usually, I would say it's going to stack everything in your favor of having a better relationship with your children as they grow, and especially as they become adults. And you're going to have great relationships with your grandchildren. But you know what the biggest benefit of working on yourself and your emotional maturity and your emotional intelligence? You just have so much to give to others. You will feel so content and have so much joy, and probably most importantly, peace. And your life is going to be one that influences others in a really great way. And as a Christian, that is really what this life is all about, is having influence. And that our behavior leads people to want what we have a relationship with God, to have a relationship with Jesus. And people are watching us. So come on this journey with me, and we're going to really take apart this whole subject of emotional immaturity, especially as a parent, and let yourself get to a place of humility and being willing to hear and willing to learn and move forward in a different way. I can promise you it will change your life.